The stars looked different today. Commander Yuki pressed her face against the cold glass of Luna Station's observation deck and watched something that should not exist. Dark shapes moved between the planets, bigger than cities, casting shadows on Jupiter's moons. Her hands shook as she reached for the communication panel. "Lieutenant Commander Minho, get to the command center now." Minho's voice crackled through the speaker. "On my way, Commander. The readings are off the charts." Yuki ran through the metal corridors of the moon base. Her boots rang against the yaour floor with each step. Other officers moved quickly around her, their faces pale with fear. Everyone knew what those readings meant. Something impossible was happening. The command center buzzed with activity. Dozens of screens showed the same thing over and over. Massive ships filled the space between Earth and Mars. Each one was the size of a small country. Their hulls gleamed with strange metals that human eyes had never seen before. "How many?" Yuki asked. 200 confirmed, said Minho. "Maybe more hiding behind the gas giants." Yuki stared at the numbers on her screen. The largest human ship was barely a dot. Compared to these giants, Earth's entire space fleet could fit inside just one of the alien vessels. A new signal appeared on the communication array. The computer translated it automatically, but the words made no sense at first. Then the meaning hit her like a punch, to the stomach. "People of the third planet," the message began. "We are the Vorthak hegemony. We have ruled this galaxy for 3,000 of your years. Your species will surrender within one rotation of your planet. If you refuse, we will burn your world to ash. This is your only warning," the message repeated in every human language. English, Korean, Spanish, Russian. The aliens had been watching Earth for a long time. Far away, on the lead ship of the alien, Fleet Supreme Admiral Krextal studied the blue planet through his viewing screen. His skin was gray and rough like stone. Forearms moved across control panels with practiced ease. He had done this many times before. "Another primitive world," he said to his officers. "They will break quickly." His second-in-command, a thin creature with too many eyes, nodded agreement. "Our scans show basic nuclear weapons and chemical rockets. They have not even left their home system properly." Krextal laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. "Perfect. The weak ones make the best servants. The hegemony had conquered thousands of worlds. The pattern never changed. First came fear, then desperate attempts to fight, then surrender. The humans would follow the same path. On Earth, emergency meetings started in every major city. President Hayek sat in a bunker deep under Seoul, surrounded by generals and scientists. The room smelled of fear and old coffee. "Options?" he asked. General Daeho stood up slowly. His gray hair was messy from running his hands through it. "Sir, our nuclear weapons cannot reach their ships. Even if they could, their shields would stop everything we have." "What about the space stations?" "Luna Station has some defensive weapons," said Yuki through the video link, "but nothing that could damage ships that size." Dr. Yunbi, head of the Aurora project, spoke for the first time. "There might be another way." Everyone turned to look at her. She was young for such an important job, but her eyes held knowledge that few people possessed. "Explain," said the president. "For 20 years, my team has been working on something called quantum cascade technology. We built it to defend against nuclear weapons, but it might work against their systems too." General Daeho frowned. "Might? Their ships use quantum computers for everything. Shields, weapons, life support. If we can disrupt those systems, you can crash their ships? Better. We can turn their technology against them." The meeting room fell silent. Outside, people around the world watched the sky and waited for death. Children cried in their parents' arms. Cities prepared for evacuation. News reporters spoke in shaking voices about humanity's final hours, but in secret military bases around the planet, other preparations were happening. Weapons that had been hidden for decades came online. Scientists who had worked in darkness for years finally saw their purpose. The Aurora project had started in 1955, just 10 years after the first nuclear bomb. A small group of scientists had asked a simple question: what if humanity faced an enemy with better weapons? The answer could not be to build bigger bombs. Instead, they would need to think differently. Dr. Yunbi's grandfather had been one of those first scientists. He taught her that the strongest enemy often had the greatest weakness. Their strength became their failure when used against them. Admiral Krextal checked the time on his ship's chronometer. The humans had 6 hours left to surrender. He expected their governments to collapse within 3. They always did. "Sir," said his communications officer, "we're receiving thousands of transmissions from the planet. Pleas for mercy, offers of surrender, requests for more time. Ignore them all. When the time limit expires, we begin the demonstration." The demonstration was always the same. A few cities would burn to show the planet's people what resistance meant. Then the real surrender would come, fast and complete. On Luna Station, Yuki watched Earth turn slowly in the darkness. Somewhere down there, her family was probably looking up at the stars and thinking about her. Her mother and father lived in Busan. Her brother worked in Tokyo. Would she ever see them again? "Commander," said Minho, "I'm reading massive energy, buildups in their weapons. How long until they fire?" "Maybe an hour." Yuki opened a secure channel to Earth. "Dr. Yunbi, this is Luna Station. How much time do you need?" The scientist's voice was calm despite everything. "The cascade generators are charging now. Give us 30 minutes. You have it. Around the world, hidden facilities powered up systems that had never been tested in real combat. Electromagnetic pulse generators the size of buildings hummed to life. Quantum computers calculated targeting solutions for weapons that existed only in theory. The hegemony fleet moved into bombardment positions. Each ship was a masterpiece of alien technology, built over centuries by the greatest minds in their empire. Their quantum shields could stop anything. Their weapons could crack planets. They were perfect machines of war. That perfection would be their downfall. Admiral Krextal gave the order. "Begin the demonstration. Target their largest population centers." Plasma cannons that could melt mountains turned toward Earth. The barrels glowed with barely contained energy. In moments, human civilization would learn the price of defiance. But in those final seconds, Dr. Yunbi pressed a single button in her underground laboratory. Around the planet, her colleagues did the same. Cascade generators sent invisible waves racing toward the alien fleet. The hegemony had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had destroyed countless worlds and enslaved entire species. They thought they knew everything about war. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. The first plasma torpedo left Admiral Krextal's flagship at exactly 14:32 Earth Standard Time. It was a beautiful weapon, glowing white-hot as it cut through space toward the city of New York. The torpedo contained enough energy to turn Manhattan into glass. It never reached its target. Commander Yuki watched her console as impossible numbers flashed across the screen. "Minho, are you seeing this?" "The torpedo just stopped," he whispered. "It's just floating there." All around the hegemony fleet, plasma torpedoes hung motionless in space. Their guidance systems had failed. Their targeting computers showed only static. The weapons that should have killed millions were now just expensive pieces of metal drifting in the void. "What is happening?" Admiral Krextal roared at his engineering team. Chief Engineer Vexmore's 4 hands danced across his control panels. "Sir, our weapons are offline. All quantum targeting systems are showing cascade failures." "Fix them." "I cannot, sir. The failures are spreading through our entire network." On Earth, Dr. Yunbi stood in the center of her laboratory, surrounded by screens showing the alien fleet. Each ship appeared as a red dot on her displays. As she watched, the dots began changing color. Red to yellow to green. "It's working," she said quietly. President Hayek's voice came through her headset. "Dr. Yunbi, report. What's your status?" "The cascade waves have reached their fleet, sir. Their quantum systems are shutting down one by one." "Shutting down how?" Dr. Yunbi smiled for the first time in days. "Imagine you built a house of cards, Mr. President. Our weapons are the wind that knocks it over. The quantum cascade technology was humanity's greatest secret. For 60 years, scientists had studied the strange behavior of quantum particles. They learned that quantum systems could be very powerful, but they were also very fragile. One small disruption could cause the entire system to collapse. The hegemony used quantum computers for everything. Their shields, their weapons, their life support, even their toilets ran on quantum technology. It made their ships incredibly advanced, but it also gave them a hidden weakness. Human cascade weapons did not destroy the alien technology. Instead, they made it forget how to work. Captain Sunho watched from his position on the orbital defense platform New Seoul. Through his viewport, he could see the massive alien ships beginning to drift. Their perfect formations were breaking apart as pilots lost control. "All stations, this is New Seoul Command," he spoke into his radio. "Begin Phase 2. Fire all cascade torpedoes." The torpedoes that launched from the human platforms looked nothing like the aliens' plasma weapons. They were small and dark, moving slowly through space. They carried no explosives, no energy weapons, no nuclear warheads. Instead, they carried computer viruses designed to infect quantum systems. When the first torpedo touched the hull of Admiral Krextal's flagship, it did not explode. It simply attached itself to the ship's outer armor and began transmitting. The virus it carried was a masterpiece of human programming, designed specifically to attack alien quantum computers. The infection spread through the ship's systems like fire through dry grass. First, the weapons went offline. Then the shields flickered and died. Life support systems began to fail. Even the lights started going out. "Emergency power!" shouted Admiral Krextal. "There is no emergency power, sir," replied his chief engineer. "The virus has infected everything. All quantum systems are corrupted." Across the alien fleet, the same scene played out on ship after ship. Vessels that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were reduced to powerless hulks in a matter of minutes. Their crews sat in darkness, breathing recycled air, completely helpless. Colonel Jiwoo coordinated the attack from her command center deep under the Korean mountains. Her screens showed the positions of every human weapon and every alien ship. The battle was going exactly as planned. "Lunar arrays, fire," she ordered. On the far side of the moon, installations that had been disguised as mining operations revealed their true purpose. Massive quantum disruption arrays, built in secret over decades, sent focused beams of cascade energy toward the alien reinforcements arriving at the edge of the solar system. The new alien ships never had a chance. Their quantum shields collapsed before they could even fire a shot. Admiral Krextal tried to understand what was happening to his fleet. His ship's computer screens showed only error messages. His quantum communicators were silent, even his personal. Armor's systems had failed. "How are they doing this?" he asked his science officer. The science officer, a creature with 6 eyes and tentacles instead of hands, studied a primitive chemical display. "Sir, they are using electromagnetic pulses to disrupt quantum coherence." "Impossible. Electromagnetic. Weapons cannot affect quantum shielding." "Normally, no, but these humans have found a way to create cascade failures. Each disruption causes more disruptions until the entire quantum network collapses." Krextal felt something he had not experienced in centuries: fear. His species had conquered the galaxy because their technology was superior to everyone else's. But the humans were not trying to match their technology. They were destroying it instead. On Earth, General Daeho watched the battle from his command bunker. "How long until their ships are completely disabled?" Dr. Eunbi checked her readings. "At current cascade propagation rates, about 4 more minutes." 4 minutes to defeat a galactic empire? 4 minutes to prove that their empire was built on a foundation of sand. The truth was even more devastating than the humans realized. The hegemony's quantum technology was all connected through subspace networks that spanned the entire galaxy. When the cascade viruses infected the ships in Earth's solar system, they began spreading to every hegemony installation in space. On distant worlds, alien commanders watched in horror as their planetary defense systems shut down. Space stations went dark. Even the quantum computers that managed traffic on busy trade routes began to fail. Lieutenant Commander Minho monitored the communications channels, listening to the aliens' desperate radio calls. "Commander, they're trying to use backup systems, but nothing is working." "What about their life support?" "Some of their ships have chemical backup systems. They won't die, but they can't fight either." Yuki nodded. The plan had always been to disable, not destroy. Humanity wanted to win the war, not commit genocide. Captain Sunho prepared for the next phase of the operation. "All boarding teams prepare for deployment. We're going to visit our new neighbors." The boarding shuttles that launched from the human platforms were small and fast. They approached the disabled alien ships carefully, watching for any signs of remaining weapons. But the great warships of the hegemony were as helpless as beached whales. Dr. Tae-hyung, working in the Quantum Warfare Division, explained the situation to President Hyok. "Sir, we've accomplished something unprecedented. We've turned their greatest strength into their greatest weakness." "How so?" "The more advanced their technology, the more vulnerable it becomes to our cascade weapons. A primitive species with simple electronics would be almost immune to this attack. But the hegemony's perfection made them fragile." As the 10-minute mark approached, Admiral Krextal faced the most humiliating moment in his species' long history. His magnificent fleet, the pride of the hegemony military, was floating helplessly in space around a primitive world they had come to conquer. His communications officer managed to get one chemical radio working. "Sir, we could try to contact the humans. Perhaps arrange some kind of surrender." Krextal's voice was bitter. The mighty hegemony surrendering to a species that has not even colonized its own solar system? But what choice did he have? His ships were powerless. His weapons were useless. His crew was trapped on vessels that could no longer support life for much longer. The humans had done the impossible. In 10 minutes of fighting, they had defeated an empire that had ruled for 3,000 years. And they had done it not with superior force, but with superior thinking. The war was over before it had really begun. Captain Sunho's boarding shuttle touched the hull of Admiral Krextal's flagship with a soft bump. Through the small window, he could see the massive ship stretching away in all directions. Up close, it was even more impressive than it had looked, on the sensors. "Cutting through now," said Sergeant Borum, holding a plasma torch to the alien metal. The hull was thick, but human tools could cut through it. Inside, they found corridors filled with dim emergency lighting and the sound of struggling. Life support systems. The air smelled strange, like burning electronics and alien sweat. "Hello," Sunho called out in English, then repeated it in Korean and Spanish. A voice answered from the darkness. It spoke in heavily accented English. "Please, do not harm us. We surrender." They found Admiral Krextal in what had once been his command center. The proud alien leader sat in the dark, surrounded by dead computer screens. His gray skin looked pale, and his 4 arms hung limply at his sides. "You are human," he said when he saw Sunho. "Captain Sunho, Earth Defense Force. I'm here to accept your surrender." Krextal laughed, but it was not a happy sound. 3,000 years of conquest, ended by creatures we thought were primitives. "Your ships are disabled, but your crews are alive," Sunho said. "We don't want to kill you. We just want you to leave our system." "Leave?" Krextal's eyes widened. "Young human, you do not understand. My ships cannot leave. Your weapons have destroyed our ability to travel faster than light." This was news to Sunho. "Explain." "Our jump drives require perfect quantum synchronization. Your cascade virus has corrupted every quantum system on every ship. We are trapped here until we can rebuild everything from scratch." Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Yunbi was discovering just how far the cascade effect had spread. Her computers showed quantum failures appearing across the galaxy like lights going out one by one. "Dr. Yunbi," said her assistant, Dr. Minhyuk, "we're receiving strange signals from deep space." "What kind of signals?" "Distress calls. Hundreds of them, all in alien languages." The Cascade virus had done more than disable the hegemony fleet. It had spread through their quantum communication network to every hegemony installation in the galaxy, space stations, planetary defense systems, even civilian infrastructure was shutting down. Emperor Zekthul of the hegemony sat on his throne on the capital world of Vorthak Prime, watching his empire collapse in real time. His advisors brought him reports that made no sense. "Your Majesty," said Fleet Admiral Nexvar, "we have lost contact with 17 sector fleets. All quantum networks are failing. How is this possible? A single human world has somehow infected our entire infrastructure with a computer virus." The Emperor's tentacles writhed with rage. "One world, one primitive world, has brought down the hegemony?" "It appears so, Your Majesty." Around the galaxy, enslaved species watched in amazement as their hegemony overseers suddenly found themselves powerless. On the mining world of Kepler 438b, the reptilian Drac workers looked up from their forced labor to see the guard towers going dark. "The machines have stopped," whispered Drac Elder Ciceron. "What does it mean?" asked a younger worker. "It means the sky is falling on our masters." On Earth, President Hayek called an emergency session with world leaders. The aliens' surrender had been broadcast globally, but the situation was more complex than anyone had expected. "They can't leave," General Deho reported. According to their admiral, the Cascade virus destroyed their ability to travel between stars. "So we have a galactic empire's worth of aliens trapped in our solar system?" Dr. Yunbi spoke up from her laboratory. "Actually, sir, we have a bigger problem. The virus has spread to their home worlds. We may have accidentally crippled their entire civilization." The room fell silent. They had wanted to defend Earth, not destroy an entire galactic empire. "What are the consequences?" asked President Hayek. "Unknown, sir. But if their technology runs their planet's life support systems, we may have killed billions of people." This was not what humanity had intended. The Cascade weapons were designed to disable attacking ships, not to spread across the galaxy like a plague. Colonel Jiwoo was the first to suggest a solution. "What if we could fix their systems?" "Fix them how?" asked Dr. Yunbi. "You created the virus. Can you create an antivirus?" Dr. Yunbi thought about it. "Maybe, but it would require us to understand their quantum technology much better than we do now." "Then let's learn," said President Hayek. "If we broke their empire by accident, we have a responsibility to help put it back together." Captain Sunho was already working on that problem. His boarding teams had captured dozens of alien ships and were downloading their computer systems. The quantum cores were corrupted, but the basic hardware was intact. "Dr. Yunbi," he reported over the radio, "I'm sending you everything we can find about their technology. Maybe you can figure out how to fix what we broke." On Vorthak Prime, Emperor Zekthul faced a choice that no hegemony ruler had ever confronted. His empire was falling apart, his fleets were disabled, and his people were beginning to revolt. The humans who had caused this disaster were the only ones who might be able to fix it. "Send a message to Earth," he ordered his communications minister. "What should it say, Your Majesty?" "Tell them we request their help." The words tasted like poison in his mouth, but pride was a luxury he could no longer afford. Meanwhile, on the liberated worlds, something unexpected was happening. Species that had been slaves for generations were working together to overthrow their hegemony rulers. The Cascade virus had given them a chance they had never hoped to see. On Altair 4, the blue-skinned Zephyrians used captured hegemony weapons to free their prison camps. On the ice world of Tau Ceti Prime, the insectoid Clacti emerged from underground hiding places to reclaim their stolen cities. The galaxy was changing faster than anyone could track. Dr. Yunbi worked day and night to understand the alien technology. The quantum computers were incredibly advanced, but they followed principles that human science could grasp. The real problem was the scale of the damage. "It's like trying to rebuild a house while it's still on fire," she explained to her team. "Every time we fix one system, the virus corrupts it again." "What if we isolated the repairs?" suggested Dr. Minyuk. "Fixed one ship at a time, completely disconnected from their network?" "That might work, but it would take years to repair their entire fleet. Then we start with the ships that can carry their people home." It was a humbling experience for the hegemony. Species they had conquered were now offering to help repair their technology. Humans they had come to destroy were working around the clock to save their civilization. Admiral Krextal found himself working alongside Captain Sunho to identify which systems were most critical for life support. The old warrior had never imagined he would be grateful to an enemy for sparing his crew's lives. "Your people fight in a way we have never encountered," he told Sunho. "How so?" "You defeat us, then try to heal us. Why?" Sunho thought about it. "Because winning the war is not the same as winning the peace." As news of the human victory spread, Earth received communications from across the galaxy. Some were messages of thanks from newly liberated species. Others were threats from hegemony loyalists who blamed humanity for the chaos. But the most important message came from a small group of alien scientists who had been working in secret for decades. "People of Earth," the message began, "we are the Galactic Liberation Front. We have been fighting the hegemony in secret for 50 years. Your Cascade technology has given us the weapon we need to free the galaxy. Please, share your knowledge with all oppressed peoples." Dr. Yunbi looked at the message and realized that humanity had started something much bigger than a simple defensive war. They had ignited a galactic revolution. The question now was, what would they do with the victory they never intended to win? The secure communication chamber on Vorthak Prime had never held a meeting like this one. Emperor Zekthul sat at the head of a table, surrounded by his highest military commanders, all of them staring at reports that painted the same impossible picture. "Read it again," the Emperor ordered. Fleet Admiral Nexavar cleared his throat. "Your Majesty, in the past 72 hours, we have lost contact with all 17 sector fleets. Quantum communications are down across 47 systems. Slave revolts have started on over 200 worlds. And the source of this catastrophe? One human world, Earth, population 8 billion, technology level, primitive nuclear, and chemical propulsion." The Emperor's tentacles curled into fists. "One world." "Yes, Your Majesty. In the 3,000 years of hegemony rule, nothing like this had ever happened. The Empire had conquered thousands of species, absorbed countless civilizations, and ruled over millions of worlds. All of it was built on one simple principle. The hegemony had the best technology in the galaxy. Now a species that had not even left its home solar system had brought down the entire empire in less than 10 minutes. "How?" the Emperor whispered. "Chief, Science Advisor Mortith spread her data tablets on the table. The humans use something they call quantum cascade technology. Instead of trying to match our quantum systems, they created weapons that corrupt quantum coherence itself. Explain it in simple terms. Imagine our technology as a perfectly tuned musical instrument, Your Majesty. The humans created a sound that makes the instrument forget how to play music." On Earth, Dr. Yunbi was beginning to understand just how far the cascade effect had spread. Her tracking stations around the globe showed quantum disruptions reaching into distant parts of the galaxy. "Dr. Taehyung, look at this," she called to her colleague. "The cascade signals are still spreading." Dr. Taehyung studied the display. "How is that possible? The original pulse was over 3 days ago." "The virus is self-replicating through their quantum network. Every system it infects becomes a new transmission point." "You mean we accidentally created a galaxy-wide computer plague?" "Worse than that. We created a plague that specifically targets advanced civilizations. The implications were staggering. The more sophisticated an alien society's technology, the more vulnerable they were to the cascade virus. Species that relied heavily on quantum computing were being reduced to pre-industrial levels overnight, but primitive societies were barely affected at all." President Hayek convened an emergency meeting of the Global Defense Council. The situation had grown far beyond Earth's defense to become a galactic crisis. "What's our current status with the aliens in our system?" he asked. General Deho consulted his notes. "Admiral Krextal has been cooperative. His crews are working with our technical teams to repair life support on their ships. No hostile actions since the Cascade attack. And the broader situation..." Dr. Yunbi activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked hegemony systems, with cascade infections spreading like wildfire between them. "Sir, we estimate that 90% of hegemony infrastructure is now offline." "Good God. How many people are affected?" "Trillions, sir." The room fell silent. They had wanted to protect Earth, not cause the collapse of galactic civilization. "Options?" President Hayek asked. Colonel Jiwoo spoke first. "We could try to develop an antivirus to stop the spread." "How long would that take?" Dr. Yunbi shook her head. "Months, maybe years. The virus is designed to adapt and spread. Stopping it would be like trying to unburn a forest." "What about helping with repairs?" "That's more practical," said Dr. Yunbi. "We can create isolated repair protocols for critical systems, life support, basic transportation, emergency services." Engineer Min-hyuk added, "We've already started sharing repair codes with the alien crews here. They're learning fast." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the revolution was spreading faster than the Cascade virus itself. On 1,000 worlds, enslaved species saw their chance for freedom and took it. On Rigel 7, The aquatic swimmers used their natural abilities to sabotage underwater hegemony installations. The Cascade virus had already disabled the quantum security systems, making it easy for the rebels to complete their work. Elder swimmer Kithara led her people through the flooded ruins of a hegemony administrative center. "The metal gods are broken," she sang in the ancient language of her people. "The time of swimming free has come." On the desert world of Kepler 442b, the nomadic sand people emerged from hiding places they had used for centuries. Their leader, Windwalker Sen, studied the dark hegemony outposts with satisfaction. "The Sky Lord's magic has failed them," he told his tribes. "Now we reclaim what was always ours." The pattern repeated across hundreds of worlds. Species that had been conquered and enslaved were throwing off their chains while their masters sat helpless in the dark. But not all the news reaching Earth was good. "President Hayek," said Communications Director Eugene, "we're receiving distress calls from 17 different systems. Hegemony civilians trapped on disabled space stations, colony ships losing life support, entire planets cut off from food shipments. Show me." The main screen displayed a map of humanitarian crises spreading across hegemony space. Without their quantum logistics network, the Empire was unable to feed its own people. "We have to help them," said President Hayek. General Deho looked surprised. "Sir, these are the same people who came here to destroy us." The military attacked. "Us. These are civilians, children. If we let them die, how are we any better than the Empire they served?" Dr. Yunbi had been thinking about the same problem. "We could create humanitarian repair protocols, basic life support, emergency communications, food distribution systems." "Do it," ordered the president, "and make sure every species in the galaxy knows that Earth is offering help, not just to humans, but to everyone." This decision would change everything. On Vorthak Prime, Emperor Zekthul received the human offer with mixed emotions. Pride demanded that he refuse help from the aliens, who had destroyed his empire. Pragmatism told him that his people needed that help to survive. "What are the terms?" he asked his advisors. "There are no terms, Your Majesty," said Foreign Minister Velkun. "They offer aid freely to all who need it." "No demands for surrender? No tribute? No territorial concessions?" "None, Your Majesty. They simply ask that we allow them to help repair critical systems." The Emperor stared at the ceiling for a long time. In 3,000 years of conquest, the hegemony had never encountered anything like this. Species that fought back, yes. Species that surrendered quickly, certainly. But species that defeated you and then offered to help you rebuild? It was unprecedented. "Send a message to Earth," he finally said. "Accept their offer." The response to Earth's humanitarian initiative surprised everyone. Within days, hundreds of species were requesting help. Former slaves asked for technical assistance to maintain infrastructure their masters had abandoned. Hegemony loyalists begged for food shipments to prevent famine. Even neutral species offered to help distribute aid. Dr. Yunbi found herself at the center of the largest humanitarian operation in galactic history. "We need to set up repair teams for different types of quantum systems," she told her staff. "Hegemony technology, Zephyrian biocomputers, Klaktai crystal matrices." "How do we learn about all these different systems?" asked Dr. Minhyuk. "We ask the people who built them to teach us." It was a radical idea. Instead of trying to fix alien technology with human knowledge, they would learn from the aliens themselves, former enemies working together to solve problems that affected everyone. Captain Sunho coordinated the first joint human-alien repair mission. His team included humans, hegemony engineers, and 2 Zephyrian technical specialists who had volunteered to help. "Remember," he told his crew, "we're not conquerors. We're not liberators. We're neighbors helping neighbors." The mission was a success. Working together, the mixed team was able to restore life support to a disabled hegemony hospital, ship in just 6 hours. It would have taken human engineers days to figure out the alien systems alone. Word of the successful cooperation spread quickly. More species volunteered to join the repair efforts. Within weeks, mixed teams were working throughout the solar system and beyond. But the most important change was happening in the minds of ordinary beings across the galaxy. For the first time in 3,000 years, species were working together as equals instead of masters and slaves. Admiral Krextall, working alongside human engineers to repair his ship's environmental systems, expressed what many were thinking. "We ruled through fear," he told Captain Sun-Ho. "But you are showing us something we never learned." "What's that?" "That ruling through cooperation is stronger than ruling through fear." The hegemony's throne had not just been lost in 10 minutes of combat. It had been replaced by something entirely new, a galaxy where different species could work together toward common goals. And it had all started when Earth refused to surrender. Deep in the underground caverns of Altair IV, the blue-skinned Zephyrian scientist Leth Ara worked by the light of a single chemical lamp. For 50 years, she had hidden in these caves, developing technology that the hegemony could not detect or steal. Now, finally, she had received the transmission that would change everything. "Attention, oppressed peoples of the galaxy," the human voice said through her primitive radio. "This is Dr. Yunbi of Earth. We are transmitting the complete specifications for quantum cascade technology. Use it to free yourselves." Lethara's hands shook as she copied the data. The mathematics were elegant, the engineering principles simple enough that any industrial civilization could build cascade weapons. The humans were giving away the most powerful military technology in galactic history. For free. On the mining world of Kepler 438b, Drac Elder Ciceron gathered his people around an old hegemony communication device. The broadcast from Earth came through clearly despite the primitive equipment. "The cascade technology requires only basic electromagnetic generators," Dr. Yunbi's voice explained. "We have included construction diagrams for devices that can be built using common industrial materials." "Can we do this?" asked a younger Draki. "Worker." Ciceron studied the technical drawings on the small screen. "Yes, the mining equipment we use every day has most of the parts we need." Within hours, construction began in secret workshops across the galaxy. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were building weapons that could destroy their masters' most advanced technology. The revolution started on Tau Ceti Prime. The insectoid Clacti had been miners and builders before the hegemony conquest. Their natural ability to work together in complex groups made them excellent engineers. When they received the cascade weapon plans from Earth, they built their first prototype in 3 days. Queen Builder Zixth led her people out of the underground tunnels where they had hidden for generations. In their claws, they carried devices that looked like simple metal boxes but contained enough electromagnetic power to disable a hegemony battle station. "Today, we take back our sky," she clicked in the ancient Clacti language. The attack began at dawn. Hundreds of small cascade emitters activated simultaneously around the planet's major hegemony installations. Within minutes, the quantum shields protecting the alien bases flickered and died. The weapons that had kept the Clacti enslaved for 800 years became nothing more than expensive decorations. Hegemony Governor Raxtel watched in horror from his command center as his planetary defense grid shut down piece by piece. "How are they doing this? They have no technology." His aide, a nervous young officer, studied the sensor readings. "Sir, they are using electromagnetic pulse weapons based on the human cascade design." "The humans are attacking us here too?" "No, sir. The insects built these weapons themselves." The revolt on Tau Ceti Prime was just the beginning. As news of the successful uprising spread through hidden communication networks, similar attacks began on dozens of other worlds. On Earth, Dr. Unbi watched the rebellion spread with mixed feelings. "We started something we can't control," she told President Hayek during their daily briefing. "Are you having second thoughts?" "No, sir. But we need to think about what comes next. These species have been slaves for centuries. They don't necessarily know how to build stable governments." President Hayek nodded. "What do you recommend?" "We offer more than just weapons. We offer knowledge, science, medicine, engineering, agriculture. Help them build civilizations, not just armies." The decision to share Earth's accumulated knowledge freely was controversial. Some military leaders worried about giving away humanity's advantages. Others questioned whether alien species could be trusted with advanced technology, but the policy stood. Within weeks, human scientists were broadcasting everything from basic chemistry to advanced computer programming. The transmissions went out in dozens of languages, translated by teams of human linguists working with alien refugees. Colonel Jiwoo coordinated the knowledge-sharing program from her command center. "We're getting requests for everything," she reported. agricultural techniques from the Drac, medical knowledge from the swimmers, even art and music from the Zephyrians. Art and music? Asked General Deho. Culture is just as important as technology, explained Dr. Taehyung. These species are rebuilding their entire societies. They need to remember who they were before the hegemony conquered them. On Vorthak, Prime Emperor Zekthul faced the unthinkable. His empire was not just collapsing, it was being systematically dismantled by the very species he had spent a lifetime conquering. "How many systems have we lost?" he asked Fleet Admiral Nexavar. 47 confirmed rebellions, Your Majesty. Probably more that we cannot contact due to the communication failures. And our response? There is no response, Your Majesty. Our fleets are still disabled. Our planetary garrisons are cut off from support. The rebels have cascade weapons now. The Emperor sat in silence for a long time. Outside his palace windows, he could see smoke rising from parts of his own capital, city. Even here on the heart world of the hegemony, the revolution was beginning. "What do the humans want?" he finally asked. "Nothing, Your Majesty." "Nothing?" "They continue to offer humanitarian aid to all species, including us. They ask for no territory, no tribute, no acknowledgement of their victory. They simply continue broadcasting their knowledge to anyone who wants it." This was the most confusing part of the entire situation. The humans had won the greatest military victory in galactic history, but they were acting like teachers instead of conquerors. Captain Sunho was learning the same thing as he worked with mixed repair teams throughout the solar system. The aliens he met were not monsters or natural enemies. They were people trying to survive in a galaxy that had been shaped by 3,000 years of authoritarian rule. The hegemony taught us that strength comes from controlling others, explained Zephyrian engineer Kethanol as they worked together to repair a damaged life support system. "Your people seem to believe that strength comes from helping others." "Which approach works better?" Sunho asked. Kethanol gestured around the repair bay, where humans, Zephyrians, Clacti, and even former hegemony soldiers worked side by side. "Look around and decide for yourself." The cooperation was not always easy. Different species had different working styles, different priorities, different ways of solving problems. But somehow they were making it work. Engineer Minhyuk had become an expert in cross-species collaboration. "The key is to focus on shared goals," he explained to new team members. "We all want to restore life support. We all want to prevent suffering. We all want to build something better than what came before." As the revolution spread, new governments began forming on liberated worlds. Some chose democratic systems based on human models. Others revived ancient tribal councils or created entirely new forms of organization. The important thing was that they were choosing for themselves. On Rigel 7th, the swimmers established a system where major decisions were made. During grand gatherings in the planet's vast underwater cities, Elder Swimmer Kithara explained the process to a human observer. "We swim together in great circles, sharing thoughts through the water's song. When the song becomes harmonious, we know we have found agreement. What if you can't reach agreement? Then, we swim in smaller circles until we understand each other better." The Clacti chose a different path. Their queen builder system was expanded so that multiple queens ruled different aspects of society. Queen builder Zikth remained in charge of construction and engineering, but new queens were chosen to handle agriculture, science, and relations with other species. "Each queen knows her hive," Zikth explained. "Together we know the whole nest." Dr. Yunbi found herself at the center of an unprecedented scientific collaboration. Researchers from dozens of species were sharing knowledge, building on each other's discoveries, creating technologies that none of them could have developed alone. "We're seeing breakthroughs in quantum theory, biological engineering, even faster than light. Communication," she reported to the Global Science Council. "By working together, we're advancing faster than any single species could advance alone." "Including humans?" "Especially humans. We're good at certain things, but we have a lot to learn from other species. Zephyrian biocomputers are incredibly efficient. Clacti construction techniques could revolutionize our architecture. Even hegemony quantum theory has applications we never considered. The galaxy was changing so rapidly that it was hard to keep track of all the developments. New alliances formed between species that had never met before. trade networks developed based on cooperation rather than exploitation. Scientific discoveries spread freely instead of being hoarded by military powers. But the most important change was in the way different species saw each other. Admiral Krextall, now working as a liaison between human and hegemony repair teams, reflected on this during a quiet moment with Captain Sunho. For 3,000 years, we saw other species as resources to be exploited or threats to be eliminated, he said. Your people have shown us a third option, which is partners to be valued. The revolution that had begun with 10 minutes of quantum cascade warfare was becoming something much larger, a transformation of galactic civilization itself, and it was just getting started. 6 months after the 10-minute war that changed the galaxy, Admiral Yuki stood on the bridge of the starship New Horizon and looked out at something that would have been impossible to imagine a year ago. The ship itself was a marvel of interspecies cooperation. Human engineering provided the quantum cascade defense systems. Zephyrian biocomputers managed life support with incredible efficiency. Galactic construction techniques made the hull stronger than anything Earth had ever built. Even former hegemony scientists had contributed advanced propulsion systems, but the real miracle was outside the viewport. Look at that, said Captain Minho, who served as her first officer. 5 different species working together to build a space station. Through the transparent aluminum windows, they could see the construction of Harmony Station, the first joint facility built by the new Galactic Democratic Assembly. Swimmers in environmental suits worked alongside insectoid Clacti, while human welders cooperated with reformed hegemony engineers. Any problems with the construction? Yuki asked. Minor language barriers, reported Chief Engineer Doyun. But we're working them out. The universal translator Dr. Yunbi's team developed is getting better every day. The universal translator was just one of hundreds of innovations that had emerged from interspecies collaboration. When different civilizations shared knowledge freely instead of hoarding it for military advantage, progress accelerated beyond anyone's expectations. On Earth, President Hayek prepared for the most important speech of his life. In 1 hour, he would address the Galactic Democratic Assembly's first session. Representatives from 47 different species would be listening, either in person or through quantum communication links. Are you ready, sir? Asked his aide. Communications. Director Eugen. As ready as anyone can be for making history, he replied. The assembly met on what had once been Vorthak Prime, the capital world of the hegemony. The symbolism was intentional. Where once a single species had ruled through fear, now dozens of species would govern through cooperation. The Great Hall had been redesigned to accommodate different types of beings. Swimmers worked from water-filled tanks. Flying species, like the aerial dancers of Kepler 186f, perched on floating platforms. Even representatives of silicon-based life forms attended through special robotic interfaces. Former Emperor Zekthol sat in the section reserved for the hegemony delegation. His empire was gone, but his people remained. They would have to earn their place in the new galactic order, but they would have that chance. Friends, President Hayek began, his words translated instantly into dozens of languages. 6 months ago, we were strangers. Some of us were enemies. Today we gather as equals to build something unprecedented in galactic history. The audience listened in respectful silence. Swimmers clicked their approval. Clacti hummed in harmony. Even the hegemony delegates showed signs of interest. We have learned that our greatest strength lies not in our weapons, but in our willingness to work together. Not in our ability to conquer, but in our capacity to cooperate. Dr. Yunbi watched the speech from her laboratory on Earth, where she was working on the latest interspecies science project. Her team now included researchers from 12 different civilizations, all focused on developing technologies that could benefit everyone. Dr. Yunbi, said her Clacti colleague, researcher Tikvel, the quantum communication array is ready for testing. Excellent. This should allow instant communication across the entire galaxy. And the cascade protection protocols? Fully integrated. No one will ever again be able to use quantum cascade weapons to attack civilian infrastructure. The quantum communication network was deliberately designed to be cascade-resistant. The lessons of the 10-minute war had been learned well. Technology should serve all people, not just those who controlled it. On the mining world of Kepler 438b, Drac Elder Ciceron supervised the construction of his people's first university in 800 years. The hegemony had banned education for conquered species, forcing them to remain ignorant laborers. Now, young Drac students learned mathematics from human teachers, engineering from Galactic builders, and agriculture from swimmer biologists. They were preparing to take their place as equals in galactic civilization. Elder asked a young student named Kesseron, "What was it like under the hegemony?" Ciceron thought carefully before answering. "It was like being in a cage made of your own fear. You knew there was a wider world beyond the bars, but you believed you could never reach it. And now? Now we learn to fly." Captain Sunho commanded the first joint exploration mission to the galaxy's unexplored regions. His crew included beings from 15 different species, each contributing unique skills and perspectives. "Captain," reported Navigator Velshan, a former hegemony officer who had chosen to join the Democratic fleet, "we're approaching the edge of charted space. What are we likely to find out there? New worlds, new species, new possibilities. The hegemony only explored regions that promised military or economic advantage. There could be entire civilizations we never contacted. The exploration of unknown space was just one part of the galaxy's transformation. Trade routes were being re-established based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation. Scientific knowledge flowed freely between worlds. Even art and culture were being shared across species barriers. On Rigel's 7th, swimmer-poet Nethera composed songs that combined human musical structures with traditional swimmer harmonics. The resulting compositions were unlike anything either species had created alone. "Art is the language that all intelligent beings speak," she sang to a mixed audience of humans and swimmers. "When we create together, we discover truths that none of us could find alone." The cultural exchange was happening everywhere. Human artists learned sculpture techniques from the crystalline builders of Tau Ceti. Galactic dancers incorporated human rhythms into their traditional ceremonies. Even former hegemony citizens were rediscovering arts that had been suppressed for millennia. But the real test of the new order came when the first crisis arose. A plague broke out on the agricultural world of Ross 128b, threatening to destroy the food supply for 3 nearby systems. In the days of the hegemony, such crises were handled by military force and forced labor. Entire populations might be sacrificed to protect more valuable worlds. The democratic response was different. Within hours of receiving the distress call, relief ships launched from a dozen different worlds. Human medical teams worked alongside hegemony biochemists and swimmer biologists to identify the plague organism. Galactic engineers built emergency shelters, while Zephyrian food specialists developed alternative crops that could grow in contaminated soil. "This is how civilization should work," observed Dr. Tae-hyung as he coordinated the relief effort from Earth. "When crisis strikes, everyone helps." The plague was contained within 2 weeks. More importantly, the cooperation between species during the crisis led to breakthrough discoveries in disease prevention that would benefit the entire galaxy. Admiral Krextal, now serving as a military advisor to the Democratic Assembly, reflected on the change. "Under the hegemony, we would have quarantined the entire system and let them die to prevent the plague from spreading. Instead, we saved them and made ourselves stronger in the process." "Why do you think it works so much better?" asked his human colleague, Colonel Ji-woo. "Because when people choose to cooperate, they give their best effort. When they are forced to obey, they give only what they must." The success of the democratic model attracted attention from unexpected quarters. Species that had remained neutral during the hegemony's reign began asking to join the assembly. Even isolated civilizations that had never been contacted before reached out after hearing the galactic broadcasts. Engineer Minyuk was part of the first contact team that met with the crystalline mines of Proxima Centauri C. These silicon-based beings had remained hidden for centuries, afraid that contact with organic life would lead to conquest. "We have observed your conflict with the Metal Empire," their leader, Crystal Singer Harmony of Thought, communicated through electromagnetic pulses. "We see that you defeated them not through greater violence, but through greater wisdom. We'd like to learn from your wisdom too, Min-hyuk replied. Every species has something valuable to contribute. This is a new concept for us. We will consider your offer. Not every encounter went smoothly. Some species were too damaged by centuries of hegemony rule to trust easily. Others had developed such aggressive cultures that cooperation seemed impossible. But the assembly was patient. Democratic values could not be imposed by force without contradicting their own principles. They offered help, shared knowledge, and waited for societies to choose their own paths. Dr. Yunbi often thought about the strange chain of events that had led to this new galactic order. We started with a simple goal, she told her research. Team. Defend Earth from invasion. Somehow we ended up changing the nature of galactic civilization. Do you think it will last? Asked Dr. Min-hyuk. Nothing lasts forever, she replied, but we've shown that cooperation is stronger than conquest. Even if this particular system changes, that lesson will survive. The first anniversary of the 10-minute war was marked not as a day of military victory, but as Cooperation Day. Across the galaxy, beings from dozens of species gathered to Celebi,